Okay. Hey guys, we want to welcome you to another edition of the New Jack Swing podcast. We've got myself, we've got my boy Sheldon, and got my boy Stevie Street. How you guys doing?
Yes. Episode
Good,
5.
good.
We are rocking.
Didn't realize it's been that long. Episode 5. Wow, that is great. Um,
Giving these new jackers more than they can handle in the last month.
Yes, and it's definitely yeah. I mean, we're excited that what's been great. We had it with Idris 2 weeks ago, and to be able to welcome Mike Cee today is going to be great. Just to talk to him and his story and his journey.
Unsung legend of the New Jack Swing.
Definitely. Okay. Um, yeah, and then we've got our top three, final three of
Oh yes.
of our new Jack songs. So that would be great to add to the end. But you know, without a doubt, I mean, we might as well just bring in Mike, so at least he can start off with us. Unless there's anything else you guys wanted to talk about.
Mike Cee of LOOKE, 2 albums for Capitol Records. I'm excited to finally get this guy on and talk to him.
Okay. Well, let me bring Mike in, and so we can introduce him to everyone. Hi, Mike. How you doing?
Hey, what's up, guys? Yes. What's happening?
Hey, Mike.
Definitely doing well. Definitely doing. We're definitely excited to be able to have you in.
Can I do a LOOKE melody?
A LOOKE melody?
It's melody. I'd try and sing, but I'd murder all the records. Take me back to my place. She's my favorite girl.
Oh man.
It's crazy. You.
Man, you digging in the crates.
Oh.
That's cool, man.
Well, Mike, for those who may be watching and dialing in who might not be familiar with yourself and your group, what can you just give us a little brief introduction about yourself, where you're from, born and raised? Oops, sorry, kind of lost you there. Sorry. Yes.
Riverside, California.
Okay.
Yeah. It's crazy. I went to school with Cheryl and Reggie Miller. Went to high school together with them.
The NBA players. Okay, Indiana Pacers. Yeah. Yes.
Mm-hmm. Just started getting into music when I was young.
So when you started getting into music, what was the because general music? I mean, what was the first thing that you got into?
Man, first thing I started doing was playing guitar, like in the first grade. It was crazy, and then from there, kind of played guitar for a while, and then because I was young, a lot of older guys wanted me to play with them, and started playing in these bands, and then next thing you know, like Parliament was out, and everything was starting to be keyboard oriented. So I kind of gravitated into like keyboards, and then everybody wanted me to start playing with them. And, I was like the youngest guy in these groups and, playing keyboards, and it just kind of, grew from there. And then just kind of went off and got with a couple other guys out of Riverside, and we kind of put a group together. And then kind of escalated from there. And then it evolved into, the original name of the group was called The Look, which we actually got from, Shalimar had an album called The Look. I think it was called The Look. And we kind of used that name for the group. And then, and it kind of, we started doing shows and stuff like that. And, kind of grew from there.
What year was this? Around what year was this? So we can have some sort of time scale of the music that was out at the time.
That was like in 80, must have been like 83, 84, around that time.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And we started doing a lot of shows. There's a whole bunch of stuff before that. I was in another group. Before that, was me and the bass player Eric, who's in LOOKE. Him and I, we were in this other group that we were kind of had a deal with Sony Records. It was and the producer that had us in the studio, it was crazy. We were recording, we did a whole album. We were I don't even want to tell you the name of the group, but there was a record out of us that we did. And this producer, he had us do a bunch of stuff. And one day we were in there recording and he just told us, I think he asked Eric something, like we were laying down some background parts. And he asked Eric, how do you think that sounded? And Eric said, oh, it sounds great. And he just went off and like he pulled a gun on us and told us to get out the studio. And it was crazy. So we got out of that situation and then we ended up, doing our own thing and just doing a bunch of, started doing shows and built up a little fan base down in Riverside. And then we would go up, and pass out flyers up in Hollywood and put on cars. And we played a couple places out there and started, doing shows there. And so it kind of grew from there.
Before you were LOOKE, though, I'm putting a timestamp on this around, it might be the group you were talking about then, but around 86, 87, there's this rare like boogie, electronic boogie album by a group called Legends.
That's it. That's man. Stevie, you do all. He does all the research.
Yes.
You know what? You go on YouTube. There's some really good tracks on that. There's some very good tracks on it.
Yeah,
that sound.
That was the project that we did, and the guy ended up kicking us out. So
wow.
Yeah.
So that's a really collectible record.
Yeah. Yeah. In fact, and it's funny, I actually just got a copy of that just recently.
Wow.
And I was like, wow, this is crazy.
So, for geography-wise, where is Riverside, California? Just is it is that Orange County, or is it north or central, or?
Well, they call it the IE, the Inland Empire. So it's about 50 miles out from LA.
Okay. Community-wise, so what's the community like made up? Because if you're getting into your music, were there lots of people, Black families within that area? Okay.
Oh yeah, definitely. And also around that time, you heard of Rodney O and Joe Cooley? Yeah.
Joe Cooley, the rappers.
Yeah. Rodney went to my high school. He's a lot younger than I am. He was friends with my sister. And him and Marquise from Two Live Crew used to rap together.
Two Live Crew, yeah.
And I used to do their music back in the day. That was before they split up. And Rodney he hooked up with Joe Cooley and Mark. Well, I know him by Mark, but Marquise, he went to the Two Live Crew. Because a couple of the guys from Two Live Crew were from down in Riverside area as well. So
they were like in the Air Force or something like that. They were in the Air Force.
Yeah.
Wow.
So at that point in time, did you have an idea of the type of music that you wanted to do? Especially with what was happening, because you had what was happening out in Minneapolis. You mentioned George Clinton and sort of stuff there.
Yeah, I mean, we were basically just in, just like R&B, because R&B was like hot. That was the thing back then. But it kind of started evolving when okay, so let me continue. So what happened was we were doing shows and just doing like kind of Prince type of stuff and and back at that time it was like the Family and the Time and stuff like that. So we were doing a lot of stuff like that. So it kind of evolved into that. But then New Jack started coming out, and we kind of gravitated into that because it just had more of a feel to it, and felt good, and was like, let's get off into that. So we started doing that. The big connection was I found out that I had a cousin who was the VP of Capitol Records promotion. And so I got a hold of him, and we started doing a bunch of demos and stuff like that. And that was around in 86, I think. Around 86, 87. And at the time, I was the actual lead singer of the group at the time. We were called the Look. And we did a bunch of demos. We had a girl in the group. She was like a Madonna. And it was just like, we were kind of like all over the place, trying to figure out where we were going to sit as far as in this whole music scheme of things. And then as we went, and figured out what we were going to do, it kind of started to come together. And we ended up, let's see, I'm trying to think what happened first. We did, we demoed a song that Eric actually came up with. Was Can You Read My Lips? And right at the last minute, they liked the song, but I didn't want to sing. I just want to play keyboards and be in the back. You know what I mean? It's too much work to be in the front. So we found this guy. He had just moved from Louisiana to LA. And it was Wayne. He was our lead singer. So we brought him in, had him recut the song. And we had another meeting over at Capitol. Capitol loved it. But they were starting a new label under Capitol, which was Orpheus Records. And they were based out in New York. It was a Hush production team. I don't know if you're familiar with them, but they had like Freddie Jackson. And
it was big in the late 80s. So big.
Yeah. So
Kashif and all that. Yeah.
Kashif, yeah. They even actually, I think Teddy Riley went to them, but they passed on Teddy Riley around that time, which was kind of crazy.
Yeah.
But so we ended up going with them. We had a couple other. There was it was kind of like it was Orpheus, and then was EMI and MCA at the time. It was kind of like MCA wanted to sign us, but they had too many acts over there. They had New Edition, they had Jody Watley, and they had Ready for the World and all that. And we didn't want to we felt like if we went to this new label under Capitol, that we would get a little more love. They would put a little more into us. So that's kind of what we did. So we went to Orpheus, and we put out our first album over there. So, but prior to that, let me back up just a little bit. Art's the guitar player in the group of Z-Look. Him and I, we were writing a bunch of songs, and we wrote a song for Troop, and it was on their first album. It was called She's My Favorite Girl. And that's on Troop's first album. Troop lived right around the corner because we were living in Pasadena.
Okay.
I had moved to Pasadena. And man, I skipped a whole bunch of stuff. But I moved to Pasadena, was staying with Art. We had a back house, and we turned it into a studio. So we had all kinds of people coming in there. We did we wrote the song She's My Favorite Girl for Troop, and ended up Chucky Booker ended up producing it for us. So that's how that got started, and that kind of helped us when we got the deal over at with Capitol, with Orpheus Records, EMI, Capitol EMI. Let's see. Prior to that,
great record that that Troop record. Even though it didn't come out as a single, it's a
No, it didn't.
Really good record.
Yeah, it was the album. It was the album cut, but it was cool for us because it kind of got us into the scheme of things and how stuff worked in the studio because we hadn't been in the studio yet, and just learning all of that stuff was kind of cool.
But at this early stage, are you also learning because you're writing songs for a group that gets on a label? Does your cousin at Capitol sort of give you the Music Business 101? Here's the Kashif book. Read it. Make sure you understand what's going on. Don't tell him I told you so.
I know, right? You know what? I don't know if Kashif's book was out then. I'm trying to think, when did it come out?
He hadn't written it yet. That book was about maybe like 20 years later. Yeah, that book was like 2 years later.
Okay. I was like, yeah. I ended up reading it, but yeah.
No, but did your cousin sort of give you the inside out, the heads up about, look, man, get a lawyer, don't sign the contract and stuff? Or
well, it was kind of crazy because then I found out that I had another cousin back east in New York who was an attorney, music attorney. And he was a music attorney for ASCAP, Bill Lewis.
Bill Lewis,
and
yes.
So that's, we got the plug. So that was the plug. That was the connection to, get that worked out. But we definitely learned some stuff. I think Ronnie had he had put a manager that was handling us for a hot second. But he was the one that told us well, you guys don't need a girl in the group. You need to get the girl out because, everybody came in, at the first couple meetings that we had, we still had the girl and we had a couple other additional people in the group. And we had to, kind of cut down the crew a little bit, do a little trimming. And so that's kind of what happened.
But what was the reason for that? Because if you think of, say, Cameo or Earth, Wind & Fire, for the aesthetics, having to go from a band of 20 down to 3. For you guys, when you did decide, okay, to cut the girl out the group, was it financially or was it about the look and how you could be promoted?
I personally think it was like the look, maybe because back then right around that time, they started consolidating. It wasn't the big groups anymore. Everything was kind of, so they could focus on, it wasn't too many people that they had to focus on, I think they started like cutting,
Speaking of that,
cutting down. What's that?
Well, speaking of that, you all had a unique look because your group had a unique look because at that time, just like you said, that they were kind of streamlining the groups, and they would have made your group stand out. Was your group was interracial?
Right.
And I was doing some research, and you did in 89 and 91 in the LA Times, and you came at your band members. It was like when Hush Productions signed you, they signed you because they liked their music. Then the lineup was interracial compared to other groups where they're focusing on how you looked.
Right.
Can you talk about that?
We kind of took that from the whole Prince thing, where Prince, the group was interracial. You know what I mean? We kind of wanted to cater to everybody. That was kind of the idea initially. And then once we started cutting down, trimming, it just came out to like, only one that was different was Art, was the guitar player. He's Hispanic. So, and him and I, we were the ones where, we ended up doing like a lot of the production on stuff. So we ended up doing like the interviews. They had us doing interviews and stuff like that. So, but yeah, that's kind of how it evolved,
I mean, during that time, and I'm sure Stevie and Sheldon will come in as well. But during that time, was it what were the groups? Because you decided to gravitate towards New Jack Swing. So which was the hardest sort of thing happening that you guys were like, okay, we need to, we need this is the benchmark for what we're trying to do.
Well, right around, it was crazy because right around that time, it was Keith Sweat, I Wonder came out. And
Okay.
the thing was, when we got signed, we only had 2 weeks to record the whole album. We did it in 2 weeks. So around that time, that was happening. So we were just like, okay, well, let's do something. Like, Take You Back to My Place was kind of, that song we had written that like maybe like a year prior to, and it was kind of like off of the time, kind of just, that kind of vibe. But I remember I remember reading a article in Billboard, and they were saying that we were like a clone of the time, and we weren't that. And they were saying, they kept saying, oh yeah, they're trying to be a Minneapolis type of group, and we weren't trying to be that. It was just, I think when we did our first, I'm trying to think, the first photo shoot that we did, we had he's gonna kill me, I forgot his name. Who did our photo? He did all of Prince's stuff. Jeff Katz. He shot our first photo shoot. So that's where we're all in black on the first album cover. And I think a lot of people looked at that and said, oh, they're trying to be like, The Time or Prince or something like that. And we weren't. It just happened to kind of look like that. So, when we came to the second album, yeah.
I'm sorry. Yeah, you spoke about that in your interview. You kind of said that you all wanted to be mysterious and a little mean. That's how you wanted to look back then. It was just that image.
Yeah. It was kind of, we were still trying to find out, where we sat in things and where we wanted to fit in, and the music kind of evolved, after that, so, of course we wanted to be a little more colorful and vibrant and kind of, fun, like, as opposed to just being serious and dark and, so it kind of evolved. It definitely evolved.
But I wonder though, because and you guys, Sheldon, you and Mike would know better than. But was most of the music coming from New York on the East Coast? I mean, what was the West Coast known for around those mid '80s when it came to R&B?
That's a good question. I'm trying to remember. That's so long ago.
The West Coast coming out of that time, it was just coming out of that whole Solar thing was starting to really kind of die down.
Okay, Shalom.
That was starting to kind of die down. Yeah, and the whole like Mike was saying, the Solar situation was dying out, and then the Prince situation that was real. They had an influence on all those groups, Ready for the Worlds and everyone else. Yeah. But basically that sound, because now it was going toward the Linn drums and all the electronic high tech equipment. And it was still a band situation. Like in New York, they were starting to deal with, singular production, and hip hop was coming in. But on the West Coast, it was still more like a band thing.
Right. Exactly. Yep.
I mean, I thought the first album in terms of sound was more, it was like melodic R&B, pop funk, Take You Back to My Place. I'd say the one track that stood out as like a New Jack vibe, New Jack single was Get to You. I thought that had the swinging production on it.
Yeah.
I felt overall as an album, it had, like you say, it was your own unique sound. It was very much different from the second album, which we'll get into later. But and Get to You was like, that was the very first record I heard of you guys. I never even saw your first album in the record shops.
So here's the thing. this was the biggest problem with us that people didn't realize. Can You Read My Lips? That was the first single.
Mhm.
The label didn't want to do a video because Keith Sweat didn't do a video for I Want Her. So they were using that. That was their whole thing. They're like, well, Keith Sweat, you know, that song went #1. Can You Read My Lips? We went to number 2. I think it was number 2. The single was number 2 for like 3 weeks on Billboard.
Wow.
But no video. So nobody could connect us.
Mm.
They didn't know what we looked like. They heard the song, but they didn't know who we were. Then they booked Soul Train. We go on Soul Train, and they want to promote the second single.
Oh, goodness.
So when we go on there, people are like, well, who are you guys? And we're like, and at that time when we were shooting, I remember when we were shooting, the first time we went on Soul Train, we were shooting when we shot the second single, which was Lovesick. They were asking us, well, who are you guys? And we told them, you know, we do that song, Can You Read My Lips? They're like, oh, yeah, that's on the radio now. Why don't you guys do that? You know? And we're like, well, you know, the label doesn't want us to do it. They want to promote the second single. Which,
Wow.
So yeah, so you know, that was the biggest issue. I really feel like if we had a video, there would have been more of a visual presence of the group, you know.
But then, is that something that about the East West Coast type of thinking compared to the East? Because you know, Keith would tell you that you know the songs blew up so quickly that they just didn't have time to shoot stuff, and then they used the Apollo performance as sort of a video.
Yeah, you know, it's funny because by the time we got back to New York, we were going to do the Apollo, but they had shut down. I guess it was like their off season by the time we got there, so we weren't able to go on and do that. And then we went on like a promotional tour, so we were out after that. But it was like, you know, we were trying to be more visual. And, you know, so that kind of bit us, you know.
So with you all being a West Coast band coming out around that time, and this is almost like on the heels of Tony's Who album, and they had like a kind of synth. This is before they started to kind of go into the retro soul type of situation. Did people try to draw comparisons between both groups?
Not really until like we did the second album and we changed our look and got, you know, because we were like, we want to be like Tony, be more colorful, you know what I mean, with the flowers and the hat, and you know, I had a big old high top, you know, looking all crazy, but yeah, it was just we did a couple of shows with them as well, but no, we never, you know, I think our music was a little bit different from theirs. Just a little bit, but again, we were more New Jack, you know, than they were.
But were any New Jack groups out of the West Coast? Was that something? Because did the West Coast appreciate New Jack Swing the way they did on the East Coast?
Well, you got to understand, Teddy was like the king of New Jack, and it was all new. So you know, it was basically all coming from out there. And, you know, we just like that style. We were like, oh, man, this is happening. Let's roll with this. This is kind of cool. So that's kind of what we did. It's funny. I just, my boy, we just did, I just FaceTimed Teddy last week, you know, just talking to him was kind of cool. But, yeah, it's, you know, it's kind of crazy. But Cali, what was happening right around that time, the West Coast rap started coming in because Dre started, you know, he started, and, you know, it was a lot of, you know, the LA, you know, rap was, you know, starting to get more heavy. That is a station out there called K-Day. And we had to go back in and remix all of our songs and include like raps, put raps in them and stuff like that. so they would play it on K-Day, you know, and then we started doing, you know, they had us come in doing interviews and stuff like that. So, you know, K-Day was like the station back then.
There's a track on your album called "Take You Back to My Place." Was that ever considered as being a single?
I see a lot of people like post it up, you know, that really like that song. I like that song. It's funny when we did it, when we originally, I have I might have to send you out to find it, but I have an original version when we used to record at my parents' in their garage. I had kind of converted it into like a studio, and we all would rehearse and record in there. And when we came up with that song, it was kind of like it sounded like a funeral song. It was so slow, you know, and we're like, we like this song, but we got to do something to it. It just sounded like, you know, it's crazy, but we ended up speeding it up a little bit, you know, for the album. But yeah, I think they had talked about it being a single, but what ended up happening is we ended up producing the first album we did. I think like we produced like 6 songs. There was 8 songs total, I think. And we did 6. No, we did 5. We produced 5 songs. And then the other 3, they had a couple other producers come in and do those. And those are the ones that they wanted to make singles. You know, our song, Can You Read My Lips, that was the first song that came out. And that was the one that charted the highest. And then they brought in, you know, then they pulled in couple other songs on the album. But
I'm only just discovered that there's a guy out in China called Norman. He's quite a big name, Norman Chung or Cheng, and he released an album in 1990. And there's a cover version of "Can You Read My Lips." I mean, the music's identical. I thought you produced it, but I find out you're not now. But you need to check that Chinese guy out.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, you gotta send me that one. Check.
Do you recall as well? This is between the first and the second album. Do you recall working with an artist called Chris Bender?
Yes.
Tell me about him, because he obviously something very tragic happened to him. But can you give us a story about working with him?
Yeah, Chris was. We were starting to do we did like a lot of remixes. We did a remix for there was a group called Sweet Obsession.
Yeah, I remember them.
Sweet Obsession. We did a remix. It was called Cash Money. Right around that time, they called us, Sony or Epic. They had called us to do a song for this new singer, and it was Chris Bender. And we were like, yeah, you know, we were just trying to work. So myself and Art, the guitar player from LOOKE, we wrote this song called Baby Girl. And they hooked us up with Chris Bender, flew him out to Cali, to LA. We went in and recorded the song in like 2 days. And then it ended up being the first single. And I'm trying to remember what happened. It was it after? I'm trying to think. Was it after that? He was a great singer.
I was going to say, was he Sony's answer to like Bobby Brown? Do you feel?
Yeah.
I think so.
Yeah. He was dope. He was dope. It's just tragic what happened to him, but I just kind of wish we got a little more longevity out that guy, because I think he would have probably still been around doing stuff.
Wow. At least you worked with him though,
Yeah. He was cool. He was a cool kid. He came out and did that. I think what happened after that? Let's see. After that, we ended up
Cheryl Lynn,
doing
again, 1989. Can you remember working with Cheryl Lynn?
Charlotte. Yeah. She liked "Can You Read My Lips," and so she got in touch with our we were with Hush Productions, so she got with them, and we ended up writing the song for her, and that was cool. She was on Virgin Records at the time, so we did that. It's called "The Bottom Line." That was the name of the song. So we were. I think we were on the road. It was funny. Right around that time, I think we were down in Florida. And
what do you think of her voice? Because she had incredible voice, didn't she?
Oh yeah. She's yeah. She still has an incredible voice. You know. Yeah, we were in Florida. We were on tour, and we ended up we flew back into LA to record with her. Initially, before we went out, we wrote the song, and she actually came to our house in Pasadena, our back house, and we were working out the song and stuff like that. And then we ended up booking time, but we went on the road, and then Art and we flew into LA. Right around that time, I remember when we got to LAX, we asked the driver to take us to Tower Records on Sunset Boulevard. So we're driving down Sunset Boulevard. We get to Tower Records and look on the front of Tower Records, and they got a big old picture of us on Tower Records on the building, from the album. And we're like, oh man, we got to go take a picture, So we go and, take a picture and stuff like that. And we ended up going get to the studio because we had flew in for the weekend to record with Cheryl, and she came in and she did her thing, and we did the song. It was pretty cool. It was pretty cool.
What was it like being like the new group? Because Orpheus was going through a change. It had all the whole roster that they had, but you all might have been looked at. You like the future. The new direction the label is going in. So what was it like being on Hush back then?
It was interesting. It was interesting. They definitely had radio on lock. They were like the radio cats to, if you want something played on the radio, you go through them because they had a good lock on getting airplay, and they were real good with all the radio personnel and PDs and all that stuff. So that was kind of cool. But that was they had that unlocked. So, that kind of worked out for us as far as like radio and stuff. But it was just the visual, like, nobody knew who we were. Kind of, it was just like, we were doing little projects here and there, because I think after the Cheryl Lynn thing, then we got a call to work with Wendy and Lisa. And so Art and we did a remix for Wendy and Lisa. They were on Virgin Records at the time. We did a song called Strung Out. We did a remix for them, which ended up, their management also managed Marcus Miller and Lenny White, the Jamaica Boys. Okay. And so that's how we got the Jamaica Boys project. And we ended up doing, they did Shake It Up.
Yeah, for the house party.
And it was, we went in and kind of changed it up a little bit. And then our version ended up being the album version and the single version. And it ended up being in the House Party movie with the Kid and Play. So that was our first.
I had that 12-inch record.
Actually, yeah.
It's incredible record. It's incredible.
You gotta send it to me because I don't even know if I have it anymore. But yeah, but all the different. Yeah, we did a bunch of different mixes on there. That was a fun. I tell you, that was like one of the most. Had a great time in the studio doing that because I think Marcus at the time when he came out, he was playing with Miles Davis. And when he came to the studio, it was crazy. That whole session was crazy because he came to the studio. I think Lenny White flew in the next day. But when Marcus was there, Marcus is like a jokester. He likes telling jokes and pranks and all that stuff. Cool, really cool, funny guy. And so we're in there recording and stuff like that. And I remember when Lenny White came in, because Lenny White's a drummer. And so in the Shake It Up, we ended up taking, I found them, but back then we were like sampling. So we found it was I think Chuck Brown. It was a bunch of go-go stuff that I came across.
Yeah.
And so I dropped some loops, some drum loops in and stuff like that. And so when Lenny White came into the studio, you know, he came in and Lenny was kind of serious. And so we were sitting there, I was trying to break the ice with him. And I said, yeah, man, I don't know whoever played drums on this track, but they just couldn't keep time. So I put these drum samples in, you know, all these loops, the Junkyard Band and, you know, playing all this stuff. And just like looked at, oh, man, he was just like, he was not having it. And so, you know, I just remember looking at Marcus and then we just started laughing. It was just funny. But yeah, it kind of broke the ice. It was cool. But those sessions, I remember we it was crazy because Marcus, he had he brought in like all my idols, you know. He had man, I just went blank. Bass player, jeez, man.
You'll remember in about 10 minutes.
Yeah, I know, right? Yeah. Anyway, he had a bunch of people off in there. When we were mixing that song, in the next room over, it was Lionel Richie. He was in there recording. And so our engineer, he knew Lionel's engineer. And so he's like, hey, you guys want to, let me introduce you guys to Lionel. We're like, okay. So it was Art and I, guitar player. So we go over and, you know, we meet Lionel. And Lionel was really cool, nice guy, everything. And then next thing I know, we go back to our room, knocking on the door. And this woman walks, no. Someone knocked on the door. We opened the door and it's Johnny Mathis. And he's like, did you guys order some pizza? Like, pizza? No, you know. And so, like, you know, he said, okay. I said, maybe it's Lionel. Maybe Lionel ordered the pizza. So, you know, he goes next door. And then the door knocks again, and it's Dionne Warwick.
Wow.
And she's like, where's that pizza? It's crazy. But yeah, that was kind of crazy. Now, you know, I walked out the studio and I'm going to the bathroom, run to the bathroom real quick, and I bump into Bruce Springsteen. And I was just like, wow, this is like
what kind of place is this where you're bumping into Dionne Warwick and Bruce Springsteen? That's crazy.
I know. This was we were recording at
We Are the World, isn't it?
Ocean Way Studios at the time. It's on Sunset Boulevard. Yeah. But yeah, we were over there. So that, you know, that was kind of fun, man. It was just like, you know, starting to meet a lot of folks, and you know, it was pretty cool.
I mean, did you think that you guys? I mean, one of the things when you're getting a big song out, you're not getting any visuals. But did you think that you guys got the recognition nationwide that other groups today, Guy?
No.
Okay.
No. You know, it's funny because it's funny. I was talking to Teddy last week, and it's crazy because we did a taping of Soul Train, and he did they were doing a special edition right at that time, it was like a New Jack thing where, you know, they did this whole thing. It was kind of like catered to Teddy and the whole New Jack thing. And I remember we were back in the dressing rooms and we went in and we took a picture. I think I took a picture of Guy. It was Teddy, Aaron, and what you call it? Damien, yeah. And I was telling Teddy about it, and he was like, "Man, I don't even remember. You guys were there? I don't." I was like, "Dude, remember?" He's like, "Nah, I don't even remember that." I was like, "That's crazy." But yeah, it's just, you know, it was just like, I think we were nobody really knew who we were, you know. We were doing little projects here and there and stuff like that, but, you know.
Did you record any tracks for the first album that didn't make it?
Yeah, there was a few that didn't go on the first album. And yeah, it got really crazy after the first album, because we had recorded right after that. They were like, "Well, you got to get in and record the second album." So we went in and recorded it. We recorded the second album pretty fast. It was probably like about less than a year. So like 89, we were recording the second album. The second album didn't come out till like 91, I think.
Yeah, it was around that time.
When we left and went to Epic.
Oh.
It was crazy because I think there's a lot of people that do have our second album, which had a couple of different songs on it. We put it out when we were still over at EMI and Capitol on Orpheus. But they were doing a deal with Epic at the time. And we put out our first single for the second album, which was called Girl Dance With Me. And that, I don't even remember, was that on our second album? That wasn't on,
it's on the second album.
It is on the second album.
It's the lead, like you say, it's the lead-off single, because that's when I kind of discovered you. There was a Capitol Classics Volume 3 album that came out in the UK in 1990 with Get To You on. That was the first time I'd heard of you. And then the single about a year later came out, Girl Dance With Me, and the video. So
yeah. So the thing was, Girl Dance With Me was initially put out on EMI, you know, with Capitol. And what happened was they put the single out and it started moving up the charts. It was getting, you know, a lot of airplay. And then they got wind that we were leaving, which we didn't even know. They didn't even tell us that they were moving us over to Epic. So what happened was they had put the single out, Girl Dance With Me. It started moving up. And then EMI they found out that we were leaving. So they just stopped promoting it. Well, it kept moving up the charts with no promotion. I think we peaked out at like 30-something, 38 or something like that on Billboard. And then they just dropped the single. And then we ended up waiting. We were like just in limbo for like about a year and a half. You know, because the album was done. They had put it out and they had put like these advanced copies they sent out to everybody. And we were gonna go out on the road with Keith Sweat and Cameo at the time.
Wow.
Because we were signed to William Morris booking agency.
What?
That's pretty big. That's pretty big.
That's pretty big.
Yeah, right? So you know, they were setting us up to go out, and then they stopped. Everything just stopped. And so we were in limbo for about a year and a half, just waiting, like, you know, well, what's going on? What are we going to do? You know, we're like, okay, we got to get jobs now. what's
Well, how
happening.
possible? How possible is it to be able to just take you from one label to another without your consent? I mean, or was that how the industry worked back then, or what?
Oh my God, it was. Well, here's the thing. A lot of it has to do because we were, you know, we were young and didn't really know, you know, about the business. And I think that had a lot to do with it. You know what I mean? So yeah, definitely learn, get your books, do some studying, learn, but the industry has totally changed from back then to what it is now, But yeah, we didn't I think that had a lot to do with it. And man, it was a lot of variables in that whole situation. But I don't know. It's just it was a whole different thing.
When you look at Hush Productions, what it was that, again, it was, I won't say it was a joint venture 50-50, but they had an agreement with Capitol. So now it was like their contract's about to go up, and now they're looking for other distribution opportunities. But at the time, he's assigned under Hush Productions. They're under Capitol, but as they're leaving, but they're releasing the record while they still have the agreement with Capitol. But they're not going to go ahead. They're going to stop promotion of the record because now it's not going to financially benefit them because they're moved on.
Right. Here's the biggest problem that we had with them was that, it was a conflict. Of course, we didn't know this until later, but the conflict of interest because they were the label and they were also the management company. So, they were making choices and not including us, just to benefit, basically like to benefit them. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I won't name any names.
I hope they're not listening. But yeah.
Yeah, I was about to say I won't name any names, but their roster. Some of the members on their roster, it was a lot of financial issues going on with that as a result of the conflict of interest. I won't say any names, but it didn't turn out good for some of their people.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it didn't turn out good. I mean, yeah. So so that was.
You called it a track for a movie called Death by Temptation. Was that between the first and second album or after all that?
Yes, that was, it's funny. I got a great story for that. When we were, that was good. Oh yeah, that was supposed to be on the second album. But that was when they put it was actually on the advanced copy of our second album that didn't come out through the Capitol, side of things. So they ended up putting it in that movie, which they were part of the production of that movie as well. I remember when we were in recording that, we were mixing it down for the movie. And I remember I walked down the hallway and I heard these drums, like it was another room, and these drums were just like killing. I was like, wow, who is this? And it was they were in the studio recording, putting together the track for Poison for Belle Biv DeVoe.
Okay.
Next room.
Spider-Man and Freeze.
Yeah. I was like, man, those drums are so loud. That snare, I was telling Art, I was like, man, do we need to go back and change our snare and make it really loud like that? It was so obnoxiously loud, but I was like, man, that's different. Wow. I was like, man, whatever this song is going to be, it's going to be huge. It ended up being,
I mean, that track from the soundtrack was pretty thumping as a new Jack
track. Yeah, we had a fun. We just did a show back in, got the guys together back in September, and we played that. Yeah, I like.
Did you ever see the movie? Because I believe was it a vampire movie or something?
Yeah. We ended up going to like the premiere of it. I think were we in New York? I'm trying to think. Yeah, it was interesting.
So in terms of the second album, I'm hearing stories that there's tracks on the album that you didn't even know who sung it. What was going on with the second album?
Dude, oh my goodness, Hush. I don't know. That song, Are You Ready? And I think that was like by the time that second album came out, when it officially came out, I was so like disconnected from it. But they had this song called Are You Ready that they actually had us go in and do a remix of it. But it was some female singing it. I don't know who it was. To this day, I still don't know who that was. I don't know. I
think that was my least favorite track on the album, if I'm honest.
Yeah, I don't even know why it was on our record, because we didn't have anything to do with that song. It was crazy,
I felt the second album had a more, in terms of the production, it was very swing, New Jack, but there was almost an LA and Babyface feel to some of the tracks. Was you checking their sound out as well at the time?
Yeah, because around that time, when we recorded the first two albums, that was LA and Face. We shared the same studio, so like we had to, I would see LA, he would be in there, Kenny, he would be in there, there was only one room, so when they weren't in, we would go in and record. And then, back then they were doing, I remember they were doing The Boys. They had The Boys. They had, Bobby Brown when they were doing My, and all that. Okay. And Sheena, they had Sheena Easton in there, Karen White, Pebbles. It was all around that time when all that stuff was going on. So yeah, the music was shifting from the New Jack into more like the LA and Face kind of vibe. So we were kind of gravitating towards that as well, getting a little more back, I guess more R&B-ish and less New Jack-ish.
Around what year was this? This was what year was this?
This was between like 89 to like 90, 89, 91, or 88 to 91, around that time.
There's a track on the album called She's My Favorite Girl. I mean, was that... Yeah. I love that record. Was it ever considered as a single? Did you make any remixes of it?
Yes. We... I had to think about that. I think we ended up doing remixes for like every song that we did.
Wow.
We did a song. There was a song on the second album. It was My Desire, and we did a New Jack version of it, but they didn't use that one for the album version.
There's about 8 different versions on the CD single of that. I've got that somewhere. I need to find it.
Oh, okay. Yeah. The New Jack one was the ones that we did, and that's what we wanted for the album, but they brought in that's what happened was so when we recorded the second album the first time, we did all our mixes and everything like that. But when we got over to Epic, they wanted to bring in this engineer, Go Atota.
Yes, that's his name. That is his name.
Yeah, I guess at the time he was doing Madonna or whatever, and they wanted to bring in some, new guy, and he ended up remixing our songs, and there's a lot of the songs that are in there that he took a lot of parts out. We had like other instruments and other vocal parts in, and they chopped the songs up and made them shorter and cut this out and got rid of this and that, and he ended up changing the drums around, and they sounded like totally different songs. They didn't sound like us. So,
Yeah, you did have a song on the album that had a UK soul-to-soul vibe on it as well. I Can't Stop Thinking About You. That actually picked up a lot of plays over here in the UK, that one.
Yeah, actually, we did a video for that. I don't know if you saw the video. We have a video for that. It's up on, I think, Vivo. They have it up there. But that's an interesting song because we doing that. I wrote that song, and I actually, at the time, there was a whole nother complication, or whole nother situation that kind of changed things up a little bit towards the end. Was Wayne, our singer. We couldn't, for whatever reason, we couldn't get him in to sing the song all the way through. So I was trying to get it done. So what I ended up doing was, we had a friend who was female. We brought her in to sing part of the verse. And so what I did was I made it into like a duet. And so they were never in the studio together to sing the song. I just, had Wayne sing his parts, and then I had her sing. And then we kind of made it like a duet kind of song, like they sung together. But we ended up later on, we shot the video, and they were both in the video together. And that song, actually, they have two different versions of it. They have I want to say it's kind of like an X-rated version. It was like on the Playboy channel.
Wow.
But that played for quite a while on the Playboy channel. But it was kind of interesting. But yeah, that was
Can you talk
like
about?
that.
Can you talk about the singer Wayne? I mean, what was going on with him? I believe is he not with us anymore? I'm trying to figure this.
Yeah, Wayne. Yeah, Wayne. Wayne is no longer with us anymore. That's one of the reasons why we kind of haven't been doing anything. Is trying to think. Wayne passed. Trying to think how long ago. It's been a while. Yeah, it's been quite a while. He was, when we ended up disbanding, because what happened was Epic ended up dropping us. But at the time we were doing a lot of remixes and stuff like that. So I was like, I'm still working, so it's all good. Wayne ended up getting into another group. And they were signed to MCA, Universal at the time. The group was called Hillside. I think it was Hillside. Might look into that. Hillside. They were on MCA. He ended up singing, got into that group, and I don't know, because I kind of like lost touch. We kind of like went separate ways, But yeah, man. So yeah, he's no longer with us.
Yeah, I mean, that is, it's in terms of like that second album though. Was there any like group discrepancies going on? I'm trying to dig here, I guess, in terms of the recording, or was members not turning up? What was actually going on?
Yeah, it was just he wasn't. I think. I don't know. I kind of think, for a minute, he just kind of lost his way for a minute. Because here's the thing. When we came across Wayne, he had just came out from Louisiana. And, like, we were right at the brink of getting signed. So he had been in maybe California for maybe, like, a few weeks. And then he hooked up with us, and then we got signed. So it happened really fast. So he was the one, like, when it happened, it just like, wow. We were going to shows, and we were getting, you get all these perks and stuff like that. You can get into the clubs, and you can go, go to the, Universal Studios for free, and, all the, all that stuff, I mean, I didn't really care about that stuff because I'm kind of like just, I love just being in the studio and creating and stuff like that. So I wasn't crazy about all that other stuff, but he just, he loved it. And I think he's just kind of got, locked into all that.
Wrapped up with the fame and
all just being and it kind of just and then just kind of like escalated, and then, got to a point where it was just like, well, if you want me to come in and sing a demo, you got to, talk. I have a personal manager.
Wow.
It just got crazy. It's just like, okay. let's just finish this record and, get out on the road and stuff like that. And then, like I said, they started booking us for a couple, going out, to do some shows. And then there was a couple times where he wasn't showing up, and it, we ended up working stuff out, but it was just, I think he just got, too, I don't know, caught up in,
He did have a look about him, though. He did have a bit of, on stage, he did, distinctive look about a tall guy. I'm sure the ladies took to him.
Yeah, we're talking about David Ruffin of the Temptations. Yeah. We're talking about. They come to see you, Otis.
Let me tell you this crazy story. This was a whole thing with Wayne, because Wayne had that James Brown hair,
that pompadour, that thing, hung on the side, yeah.
That was the biggest thing with the label. They were like, okay, we need to, like, you got to change his hair. And Wayne, that guy, oh man, that guy is funny. He would, like, I remember, like, sometimes we had, like, I don't think I never roomed with him. At the time we had, they were budgets or whatever, they had us in, double rooms or whatever, two rooms or whatever. And so, like, it was so funny because Wayne would, like, when he would go to sleep, he would sleep with he would never lay back or whatever. He would always sleep with his hand,
so he wouldn't mess his hair up.
So he wouldn't mess his hair up. And so the label, they wanted to change his hair, and he wouldn't let anyone touch his hair. And that was the whole thing. They were just like, oh man, we gotta change that hairstyle, man. It's just like, oh man. But it was a unique look for him. It's like when you saw him, you're like, okay, well, we know where he's from. You know what I mean? Or whatever. It was just interesting. But he was a funny dude.
I mean, as the industry started to shift and change, and especially in the 90s, hip hop's taken over. What, as yourself, Mike, what is it that you start to evolve into doing when the group's not, you got dropped by the label? What are you turning yourself to do throughout the 90s?
In the 90s, actually, luckily I was able to just, keep kind of working and stuff like that. I ended up, it's a funny story. When we were back in New York, there was, and this is because I think it was revolving around, well, I don't think she was with Prince at the time, but this girl that I kind of, I was just like, oh man, she's gonna laugh if she sees this. But it's like I had I think everybody had a crush on her. It was Troy Byer. And
yeah.
Troy, at the time she was back there in New York, they were shooting a film called Rooftops. I think it was called Rooftops. And she was in our at Hush Productions. She was in the manager's office. And I got introduced to her. And I was like, oh man. I remember her from the show Dynasty. She was on Dynasty. And they wanted us to do a record with her. And so I was like, we were getting ready to go out on the road. So we were trying to figure out, we could make that happen. But I saw, met her back then, and that was it. And after that, that was it. Like years later, like after we, probably it was in the 90s. I met up with her again. It was actually the girl that sang, her name was Silk. She sang in the I Can't Stop Thinking About You video song. She was the one that was in there. She did some acting on the side. And so I think I was helping her do something. and she was telling me that she was gonna do this movie with Troy, which she ended up doing this movie with Troy. Troy was directing, and I was like, oh my God, I need to meet her. I met her back in New York and blah, 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 blah. So long story short, ended up meeting her again, reconnect and stuff like that. And so what ended up happening was I ended up doing her music for her movie. And she was, at the time, it was just, she was just putting a little project together. And I think she had I think it was Quincy Jones and Russell Simmons and a couple other people they invested into doing this it was a little short. It was like a 20-minute short thing. But I did all the music for it. And then that she ended up getting a full feature through Island Pictures. And I ended up scoring that whole movie. And it was a movie called Let's Talk About Sex that came out, it was like 98 or something like that, somewhere around there. And so I did the music. I ended up doing the music for that. And then I started doing trailer music. I was like, oh man, I like this TV stuff. Movie and TV stuff is kind of cool. And I ended up doing, what was the first one I did was, I did a trailer for, it was a movie called The Quick and the Dead with Sharon Stone and Leonardo DiCaprio. It was a Western. And I did the music for the trailer of that. And I was like, man, this is kind of cool. I like this. So I started kind of doing, stuff like that. And then I ended up working with Robert Guillaume. You remember Robert Guillaume?
Benson,
yes,
yeah.
Yes. He was doing these children's books. And I did all the production and the music for these children books. He did all the, it's like Cinderella and Rumpelstiltskin and stuff like that. So I did all the production for that. They were like, at the time, they were books that had CDs in them, and it was illustrated and had the, for kids, read it, and, So I did that. Well, what ended up happening was HBO ended up taking it over.
Wow.
And it became the series called Happily Ever After, which the stories that I did, they had little kids portraying the characters, and Robert would narrate the stories. But when HBO took it over, they ended up hiring Whoopi Goldberg and Robin Williams and all of those people to play the characters, and Robert would narrate that as well. I wasn't involved in that when HBO took it over, because they ended up it's a whole different regime of folks, and so that's that happened. And then after that, I ended up hooking up with Edmunds Entertainment, Kenny Babyface label, and I was doing a bunch of remixes and production over there, and I did some stuff for Hidden Beach. Just doing mainly like remixes. So that was kind of like my thing. I was just doing remixes and production and stuff like that.
When did you leave Edmonds? Were you still there up into 2000?
I think I left right around 2000. It was like 2001. Yeah.
Had they come out with Third Story by the time you left?
Third Story, yeah. Third Story. They were like, I think. I'm trying to think. Did I do anything with Third Story? I did some stuff with Beverly. I did a couple remixes for John B. A couple remixes. Who else? I'm trying to think. Oh man.
Gosh, Beverly, that was another ill-fated project that kind of didn't come out really, did it? It's just
yeah. It's, and you know, it's funny. It seemed like the projects that I ended up doing were like the ones that ended up like on the shelves or whatever. It was just kind of, you know, like, okay. But, you know, it was, they had budgets though.
How do you look back on Z Luke now and that time period? How do you feel about it?
I mean, I definitely had a good time. You know, we're still talking about going out, doing something, putting some stuff together. We've been going through some of our material and revamping a couple things, and you know, we're gonna see. We might give it one more shot. You know, just try. We're doing some new stuff right now. We got some stuff that, you know,
I really enjoyed that. It's on YouTube, isn't it? That live performance you did last September, like at a jazz festival.
Oh yeah,
yeah, and you covered you covered Bobby Brown, and you covered Today, as well as doing some of your own songs. I mean, new jackers need to watch that live, on YouTube, that live gig that you did. You know,
how long ago was that?
That was in September, last September. So it was kind of we kind of threw that together like really fast, but we gotta like, you know, working on that, getting it a little tighter.
How did you recreate that? Because I noticed you was recreating the production sounds of like Today, Him or Me, and My Prerogative in your own way. I mean, and you say you threw that together. It was like quite unique performance, you know.
Yeah, I'm like really, you know, I'm kind of like old school, so I'm good at like recreating stuff and sounds and stuff like that. I do a lot of programming, like with keyboards and synths and, you know, all of that stuff. So I'm really, you know, I'm kind of like a guru, you know, recreating sounds and, you know, getting that whole vibe together.
I'm not sure your own talk. Is it have you got a vocoder there, a talk box you was using on stage?
Yeah, I play talk box. So that's another thing that we're kind of like incorporating now. It's like I'm gonna put a little more talk box into you know, some of the stuff that we're doing. Eric's been coming up with a lot of cool material that we're you know, trying to infuse together and, you know, put together and, you know, put something out. So, you know, we're kind of getting, you know, I think we're definitely gonna put something out here soon. You know,
Mike, I have
I
have a question for you with the sounds, because we had one of our earlier guests, Mucho from Basic Black, and he was talking about the challenge of reproducing those sounds now in a live setting, obviously, because you have to have the, you know, right technology and everything. So everything that you were using for that performance, when you were playing all those songs, were you using vintage stock equipment, or what were you doing?
Man, I used to sample a lot of stuff. I remember when we were in New York, I used to go back to like the stores back there. And, you know, I used to DJ back in the day when I was like in high school. But so I was kind of like, I listened to a lot of sounds, and, you know, you kind of get an idea of what people like. So I would grab all these breakbeat records and, you know, sample everything, and, you know, I catalog everything. I have a really big catalog of sounds and stuff that I've kept over the years. So I can just go up and pull all that stuff up and, you know, have all of those sounds there. So it's kind of, you know, has that new jack, or, you know, whatever I'm doing, I can pretty much create those sounds, which is kind of cool.
Wow.
Yeah.
But yeah, I have you know, I have samplers, and, you know, I had an MPC. My MPC got stolen, so man, I kind of lost, you know, a lot of stuff. But I still have my libraries of stuff. But you know, technology has changed, so, you know, as long as I have my laptop, I'm good, and I have my hard drives and, you know, backups and all of that stuff. So,
what do you make of like the young Black American sounds that are around now, like trap, and obviously we come from crunk, trap, we got drill. What do you make of all that?
It's cool. It's definitely cool. I'm kind of like I morph into all kinds of different genres. I mean I listen to like classical music. I listen to country. Country to me is like the new R&B. You know, country music. I mean, the trap, lo-fi. You know, all kind. You know, there's so many different styles now. But you know, music is music. I pretty much like I like it all. So, you know, it's great. For me, it gives me different ideas from different, you know, I like to mix everything up and kind of create something new.
So what do you contribute to your longevity as a working producer, artist, musician? Because a lot of people, they think that when a person is not in front, we don't see them in videos, we don't see them in media, that they're not necessarily doing anything. Well, that's the furthest from the truth. So what do you attribute to your longevity doing what you do now?
Just for me, one of the things is I just love what I do. Here's the thing: the time when I left in 2001, I ended up going out to New Mexico to work on some R&B stuff, which I ended up becoming this like Latin rap producer. It's kind of crazy. And I ended up working with Kid Frost, Baby Bash. And then I ended up, there was this guy that I used to get to sing my demos for me. His name was James Douglas, R&B singer, kind of like a Lenny Kravitz kind of guy. He was in LA. I actually had him go out to New Mexico, Albuquerque, New Mexico, and they put a group together called the James Douglas Show. And what had happened was I had him sing for Jam and Lewis. They liked him, but they didn't know what to do with him. So I think Terry said, well, can you develop him a little bit and maybe, you know, come back and do a showcase? What ended up happening was they ended up, at the time, Flight Time, they ended up disbanding, you know, the label changed and they ended up doing like film stuff. So that ended. But I ended up working with the singer, James. And they put a band together and ended up doing some shows. And then we recorded a couple albums called The James Douglas Show. We did 3 albums. And I ended up going out there and they had a keyboard player, and then the keyboard player left the group, and I happened to be out there, and they were like, can you set in and play with us for this gig? We got a gig. I'm like, yeah, I'll play. And they're like, oh man, you can't leave the group, man. You got to play in the group, you know? So I was out there for a while, and then we ended up doing a show, TV show. It was like a late night show. And it was out in Albuquerque, they were filming the show Breaking Bad. So all of the cast from Breaking Bad, well, one of the cast members, he started a late night TV show. And we ended up being the house band for that show. And then I ended up like, me and another one of my partners, we ended up being, doing production for the show. And so we did that for 2 years while they were shooting Breaking Bad. So, you know, we had all the cast on there. Everybody that was on the show was there. Bryan Cranston. It just, you know, everyone that was on the show. And we had different people come in. And then around that time, hooked up with Money B from Digital Underground, and we recorded an album together with the guy James Douglas Show, and Money B, and we still haven't put that album out yet. So it's sitting on my hard drive. I got it here, but it's pretty cool. And you know, Money. I don't know if you have Money B on. Have you had Money B on the show?
No.
From a Digital Underground?
No.
No. Yeah. Okay. But yeah, Money's a good guy. You might want to get him on there because he's got lots of stories about Tupac and Shock G and all that stuff. He's a great guy. But yeah. So we did a project with that. So, you know, needless to say, I've been, you know, I stay busy just doing production and stuff like that. So,
but with the state of how
keeps me going.
With the state of how music is, I mean, just as we're wrapping up, though, what is it that we can expect from you? You know,
I have a project that I'm working on that I'm gonna put out at some point. I've been recording a bunch of stuff, just me, just trying to just getting my yayas out. You know, just doing different type of stuff. It's all kind of you know, some of it's a little clubby, some of it's a little R&B. It's kind of, you know, it's a mixture of different types of music. But I'm doing a lot of talk box stuff with the vocoder and the talk box. And
oh, I love that. Absolutely love
stuff
that.
like that. So yeah, so that's kind of going to be my little side project that I'm doing. But you know, and then I'm working with the guys, you know, LOOKE, and we're putting some stuff together. So, you know, be on the lookout for that. Keep you posted. You know, let you guys can be the mouthpiece and tell everybody, let everybody know, you know, what's coming.
Oh,
yeah,
we'll definitely do that. We'll definitely do that.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just going to go around and ask the guys any final rounds of questions. I probably can start with you, Sheldon.
You basically answered my question. That last one was the one that was on my mind throughout the entire journey of your music career, because you've had ups and downs, but you've been able to kind of like really, really stabilize and really stay busy and find your way into a lot of creative projects. So yeah. Definitely. It's been fun, man. I think the thing for me is that I just really love what I do. So, you know, it doesn't, you know, as long as I'm able to do this, I'm good, you know.
Stevie?
So, I guess what I've learned from today is that the group back then was kind of almost a result of label politics in terms of promotion. You know, could have been pushed a lot bigger than it was. I cherish your albums. You know, I still play them to this day. You know,
I appreciate it.
You know, this songs on there stood the test of time. You know, and it's just great to have an opportunity to talk to you. You know, I would have never imagined, as like an early teen, buying your records that 30 years later I'd be talking to you.
I know, right?
When you get these records,
me too.
You know, and you know, you idolize these groups that you'd have one day, you know, actually have a chance to speak to them. So I thank you very much for that opportunity, you know.
Yeah, man, I would love to, you know, maybe get the guys in and have them chime in, because they have like tons of stories and, you know, all kinds of stuff. Would be kind of cool.
Amazing. That'd be amazing.
Yeah, I mean, and especially, you know, one of the things that we will definitely be able to do is when you do have some, you know, the music to promote. You know, we had an opportunity when Basic Black, then you know, even though Duzo passed away, but they've got two new singers, Sean and Anthony, and they had a new album, and we did a whole album release. You know, went through all the tracks, heard the stories, and we got people excited so they can stream and download. So it could be a perfect opportunity when you guys have stuff that you want to promote, and then we get everyone in. We'll definitely look forward to that.
Oh yeah, definitely. Yeah, that'd be fun.
Yeah, I mean, Mike. So we always we're doing our top 5 favorite New Jack Swing tracks, but we're down to our last three, which we'll continue after the interview. But for yourself, what would make your top 5 New Jack Swing singles when you think back at the mid '80s or so?
Oh man, oh don't do that to me. Let's see. Man, just there was different styles, but it's all like my mentor is definitely Teddy. So anything that Teddy has done is just like at the top of my list. Definitely like the Him or Me.
Okay, that's number 1. Okay.
Oh man. And even towards the end, the Remember the Time.
Okay, too.
That's got kind of like a that was on the end of the New Jack kind of vibe.
Think about records that you still might listen to today that you kind of grew up with, or that's what I do if I can't remember anything you still listen to today.
Oh geez, man, I still listen to I listen to all of it. So I mean, I want to say like a lot of it's from the Michael Jack from the Dangerous album. Yeah,
okay.
That was like my time. Actually, we were recording that around the time. We were in the same studio at the time when they were doing that as well.
Larrabee?
No, we were over in Record One, and Michael had it booked for a whole year. We were trying to get in that real quick. We were trying to get into to mix the Death by Temptation song, and we were mixing it, and we couldn't get it. We couldn't get into the studio, and Michael let us in to record for like a weekend or something like that. So that was kind of cool. And so we went in the rooms and saw they had it. Teddy and them had it all set up for when they were recording the Dangerous record. It was cool though. But yeah, I would say the Dangerous that album. The Black Street.
Which one, the first album or the second?
Well, the first and the second. Second.
What about the Jamaica Boys record?
The Jamaica Boys?
Yeah, I mean that's a classic. It is it's a bit of a classic, that, and it's Shake It Up.
Oh yeah, Shake It Up. Yeah, I did Shake It Up. We did Shake It Up, and we did Pick Up the Phone. Two songs on that album.
Yeah. So did your Shake It Up remix? That was the one that made it to the music video, right?
Yes.
That's the
that
one
ended up being the single version, because they had the original version was different.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So that was fun. Next time I have to tell you about the Wendy and Lisa situation. That was interesting too.
But minus Teddy Riley, because we take him out of the equation, who would be some other New Jack producers that you admired back in the day?
Jeez. Oh man, you caught me off guard.
I mean, we can name a few and see.
LA and Babyface were to me your biggest influence were LA and Babyface. That's what I hear in your music.
Yeah. And they're still my yeah.
But I mean, when we're looking at other New Jack producers like say Kyle West or Stanley Brown, Spider-Man and Freeze.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I really liked the Kyle West. Kyle West was dope. Yeah.
Yeah. Come on, Sheldon, Stevie. Who else do we remember from New Jack producers?
We've got Eddie F and the Untouchables.
Yeah, Eddie F. We keep forgetting.
Neville Hodge, and Eddie F.
Novell. Yep. Novell. Those the Untouchable producers. New Jack. I don't know. I won't call Dave Hall and or Chucky as New Jack. I think they're straight up hip hop. as R&B.
Hip-hop,
But
what Chucky Booker kind of was like, because he was a
not Chucky,
multi-instrumentalist.
I was talking about Chucky Thompson. Yeah,
Chucky
Chucky
Thompson,
Thompson,
right.
yeah. That was
He's
talking.
and then Dave Hall comes at the end with the hip hop soul type situation.
Hip hop soul. Yeah. Well, I mean, Mike, it's been great. I mean, we've and we're definitely going to get you back, especially with the guys, especially when you got your stuff that we've to first promote. It's been great just hearing your story, and even spend the time with us. This is as I said, the three of us are really passionate about not just New Jack Swing, but just old school music, which doesn't seem to get the airplay right now. So, but for you to spend this past hour and a half with us and our community has been it's been a real blessing and stuff. So we appreciate that. Please,
man,
yes, when you do, when the music is about to come out, we will hook up to get you back on. I think Sheldon he says he wants to be able to see a copy of the 7-inch that you have, and Stevie has recollections of Chinese versions of your song that he's gonna send over to you.
Right? Oh yeah, definitely. You gotta hook me up with that.
Well, definitely, Mike. It's been great, and we look forward to bringing you and the guys back on in the near future.
Yeah, thanks, guys. Appreciate you guys.
What we have been doing is we've been putting up your Instagram details, so everyone else can find you on Instagram and follow. Yeah.
Cool. Yeah. Thanks.
All right.
Thanks. Appreciate you.
All right. Thanks, man. Mike. Take care.
All right. You guys have a good one.
Care.
All right.
Thank you.
All right. All right.
What a guy. What a guy.
Really down to earth, and actually it was interesting hearing how unfortunate he and the group were when it came to the label promoting and stuff and being signed to a production deal. I mean, those are the kinds of things that you start wondering how come they didn't get bigger and bigger, and it's just those small little decisions along the way that just made
it so hard, Namni, to find the records. I never saw the first album. I said, I found one record on a compilation album that got released in the UK, and then I found the 12-inch. It was in a little box of records on the floor at the time. I saw the second album once on CD. I remember buying it. I never saw it again. This is all pre-internet time. I didn't get the first album till in the 2000s. I didn't know there was a first album. That's how badly they were promoted, which is a shame.
Yeah, I mean, Sheldon, the label?
Records. Yeah, Capitol Records back then it's kind of like they had a good look. Hush and Orpheus were really big on those mid 80s. I mean, they had pretty much, like you said, Freddie Jackson, Chief, and everybody. So they had like an adult. They had an adult audience. They had an adult-oriented artist. Because by the time Z-Look came around, Freddie Jackson might have been around maybe 35 years old or something like that. So they were kind of more slanting. They were more slanting toward. They were more slanted toward. I would say mature, because they weren't old, but they were mature listeners. But what was happening was Hush was eventually going to Epic, and they started to branch it off into more of a contemporary R&B. They started getting into hip hop or whatever. And again, it was kind of like I won't say the downfall, but when you start seeing a lot of the New Jack groups who we listen to, especially the more successful ones, they had like younger people or people who understood the music, which was kind of a big deal. That's why when you look at like MCA was so powerful because they had the whole machine in place that can push all of those popular groups that were making New Jack Swing records, in the 90s. So Capitol at that point, they weren't really a big R&B label. So that's where a lot of that marketing and the production stuff kind of like fell through, So unfortunately, a lot of talent gets overlooked and falls through the cracks. And then for him to say they didn't get any videos, that's ridiculous, man.
Yeah,
It's interesting you mention all that, Sheldon, because I do remember there was a transition. Because I remember studying record shops on a Saturday morning. There'd be people coming in looking for that Hush production, mid 80s kind of 808 soul, mid tempo sound. That's what they wanted to buy. And I'd come in to buy New Jack Swing, and it was like, who's this young guy? Who's this dude here buying this, like, you know, or buying this like Tom and Jerry type cartoon New Jack Swing sound? That, you know, people used to laugh at me for buying it. You know, but they wanted that, you know, that smooth Freddie Jackson suited jumper late 80s sound. It is a good sound, I can't deny it.
Yeah.
You know?
And that music, like Mike was saying, it was all over the radio. And you know, when you look at it at the time when Hush Productions was doing that thing, I mean, Luther Vandross was like big. So when Freddie Jackson came out,
he was big in Nigeria.
Freddie Jackson had like 7 #1 records almost in a row. Between 2 albums, between 3 albums, he had about 10 #1 records. So Capitol Records, they, you know, at that mid 80s, like you said, but toward the end, when the new music started to come out, you needed to get on the radio, program directors, but you needed like that younger energy, you know. And that's where, when you look at guys like Puffy, you got to give them a lot of credit, because they're pushing for these labels to spend the money on the videos and the production and all of that. So I think those guys were kind of caught up in that they were doing younger music, but it was still slightly older people in the music business. So that synergy that you needed to have, it probably just didn't exist.
It's funny because I thought of another artist that was on Capitol who kind of bridged both sounds, and he maybe got lost because he only recorded 1 album for
Who's
Capitol.
that?
Mickey Blue. Do you remember Mickey Blue?
Oh yeah.
I wonder what he's up to today. I wonder if we'd ever find Mickey Blue, because he's released some great records in.
Yeah, I mean that's the thing about the wrong label at the wrong time, and how, and you know one could go to.
What were they supposed to do though, Z Luke? Who were they supposed to sign to at the time? You know,
well, MCA would have been. You know, one people might say MCA. MCA was good, but the problem is they had too many artists, and that's why someone like Jackie McGee didn't get, because they had Jody Watley, they had all the BBD New Edition, they had the whole guy and Aaron Hall, they had all this stuff, so they had too many people on the roster.
One of the members of the community just put in a post, said props to Timmy Regisford and Freddie Sandin for pushing the New Jackson MCA. Timmy Regisford was doing a lot of remixes and a lot of things. Big shout out to Torch 2049. He just posted that. But yeah, they had the machine, they had the network, man. But MCA, like you said, they had too many artists, and there was a time when they were signing artists as tax write-offs. They weren't planning on releasing them, you know, putting records out, but they signed them for, you know, tax write-offs. But you know, between the whole MCA, and then that's why the labels like Uptown was so popular, because and so important, because what MCA couldn't do, you had labels like Uptown who really were plugged in, who could really get that music out to the masses. And you know, they didn't have that, which was unfortunate, you know.
Yeah,
because they were self-contained. They wrote and they produced their own music. You know, they did remixes. So yeah.
Anyway,
imagine walking into the studio and recording Belle Biv DeVoe Poison, and you walk past. Learn that tonight. What a story that is.
Yeah. I mean, I mean, you do. Yeah, it would be great to get Spider-Man on, because Stanley Brown mentioned the same thing, that he was. Did he say he did some stuff on that? No, he said it while they were doing that track. He got brought in to do and play the pianos on "Sex You Up." Stanley Brown.
Jeez, yeah, and I'm gonna tell you that you didn't have young people in the music producing that music. It started to kind of come. That's why, you know, we keep circling back to Teddy, because he's the first one where like labels and the industry started to realize is you have young people who are capable of making the music, and they're at the forefront of this new sound. So behind him, Now the labels are, they're establishing relationships with younger and younger producers. Because remember, whatever Teddy can't do, there's a backfill of work that still needs to be filled. So enter all of those groups that are coming in. Plus, they don't charge the money that him and Gene were able to charge people. So listen, you see that it's a lot of work.
Yeah,
A lot of work.
So anyway, we definitely look forward to bringing Mike and Z Look back when to promote their music. So guys, just as we're wrapping up, we still have our top 3 New Jack Swing tracks.
We got 4 records left. We need to go
4 left.
Yeah, we need to go 4, 3, 2, and maybe save the number 1 for next time.
Yeah, that's a good idea. Good idea. Good idea.
Okay. Okay, so who wants to go with number 4?
Go on, Sheldon.
I'll start with my 4. It's going to be the Jam and Lewis production of Janet Jackson's All Right. They're doing their version of New Jack Swing, and it's kind of clever because they have their sound, the strings, the lushness, and then they got the James Brown, Lynn Collins Think sample in the background, which that record was really big. All Right. Yeah, that's my 4th.
I actually thought, I did think Teddy
a great
did
remix. There's a C&J mix that was just incredible. Not C&J. What was it?
I have that.
Macintosh mix, I think it was.
Yes. Loose Ends, UK. Yes.
Yeah. My number 4 is Why You Get Funky on Me.
Great record, man.
By Today. I mean, there's not much I can just say about that. I mean, this is, just loved the whole vibe of it and the stuff. And it was big in Nigeria. That House Party and House Party 2 soundtracks with oh goodness, they don't make soundtracks like that no more. But those were some really, I rinsed those 2 albums out.
Well, literally, that was like that record you're talking about there. That was the first record that, as a youngster, I braved going to the big city just to try and get a copy of it. The first, I thought I've got to get on this train on my own, going to the big city on my own, and try and find a copy of this record.
I think that was one of my first albums I got, that House Party album, and playing it. So that What's your number
about this top 10 now? Keep mentioning records that. Like, it's not made it, and it's like it's so. How is that not in my top 10? The number 4 though is the 12-inch extended hype mix. Johnny Gill, Rub You the Right Way. It's the most energetic, pumping New Jack record I've ever heard. I want to put my MC Hammer pants on when I hear that record.
Yeah, a lot of energy. Man, I used to be in the club with that record, man. Oh my God, yes.
Yeah,
Johnny had the moves to go with it. Yeah,
you know what, and most props to Johnny for that, because he was not known as a dancer. I mean, he was probably the weak link in the group back in the day, and to come out with your first single that after everyone knowing you as a balladeer, that shocked a lot of us. That where's this coming from? And he left it all on the dance floor. So definitely, that's a good one. Number 3, Sheldon.
The Teddy Riley Soul to Soul Keep On Moving remix. Love it.
Okay.
Really tough sound. Lot of obscure samples. His DMC's in the background. Record the sample from DMC's Here We Go. And it's just a tough, strong groove, man. I just love it, man. Love it.
Okay. I confess, I was never a big fan of that mix. I must admit. I just don't know. Even to this day, I'm like, I don't know about that mix.
I think the song was just too good to it. I don't. Yeah, there was it was almost like both those. It was such a good track that it didn't seem to need the remix. I don't think it added much to it. So, but yeah,
he did add. Like you say, he had what Sheldon was talking about. There was bits added to it, but it just didn't do it for me. I don't know.
But the second, the original one was so strong. Yeah. When the Soul to Soul came out, people in the States people were like, man, they were drawn to them. It was like Soul to Soul was kind of like going back with the whole synths, the whole like the Barry White strings and everything. Man, people love Soul to Soul, man. They loved it, loved them.
Yeah. So, yeah, when we're going down to our final three,
You're not done your number 4 yet, Nandi. What's your number 4?
No, my number 4 was. Yeah, I'm sorry.
I'm getting lost now.
Yeah. So I probably have to. I'm gonna have to move one out because the track just came to my head. So I'll go. My number 3 is Something's Just Ain't Right. I love it's my ringtone right now. The keys. Teddy said he needed 2 keys just to do that part. And then in the middle of the track, he does the whole key run break, and Tussin to I love.
It builds and builds, doesn't it?
I just I just love the track. That is my favorite. That I've gone back and forth listening to that and the Bobby album, and I've just said no. Make It Last Forever is it is a classic on a classic and Teddy's best work ever.
But that album and those songs are dope because that's no samples. It's all music. Yeah. I think that's probably what kind of gives it that longevity.
Yeah, it is priceless. So that's my number 3. So
great choice.
Stevie, what's your number 3?
It's not the album mix, it's the 12-inch dance remix by it's an entry here from Jelly Bean, who did the remix of this. New edition, Crucial, the 7 minutes. Huge mix. Played it to death back then. Just loved it. Just loved that record.
There's a clip, if he's the one that did it, they performed that remix version. If you look on YouTube, they perform on the Soul Train Awards.
Oh, is that the one that had Rob Bass come out to the beginning?
I need to check that out.
Yeah. They had the white outfits. So there's a lot of
they had like a 2-minute intro dancing before the song.
Yeah, that's a dope record. Yeah, man, I love that. That's oh man, yeah.
Sheldon, what's your number 2?
Okay, mine's a little bit. This one is kind of more understated. Loose Ends. Obviously, the New Jack Swing is so powerful. So Loose Ends comes out with an album in 1990, and they got a song called "I Don't Love Anymore."
I don't look no more.
And that record, it's strange because you don't expect Loose Ends to come with the New Jack because they had their own individual sound, but it was very subtle, and they had the synths. And they had the James Brown Funky President underneath it, but you still hear Carl McIntosh singing in that same Loose End style. So that one really just caught my ear because it was like New Jack, but it still had the Loose End sound. So
we're talking about I Don't Need to Love. Is it that?
I Don't Need to Look No More. Right. That's the one.
Was it on the same album with Don't Be a Fool? Was that the same album?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, 1990. Yes.
Yeah, check that one out, Namdi, if you've not heard that.
Yeah, I'm upset when I ever heard Carl McIntosh because he was scheduled to do halftime chat. He logged in. I was about to bring him in to do the stuff, and he dropped out, and I didn't hear from him. So,
wow.
Yeah, he was literally in the waiting room. As I clicked to bring him in, he dropped out, and he just didn't come back. So, when I heard his name, I'm like, oh. But anyway. My number 2, I'm So Into You, the Teddy Riley new remix featuring Rex and Effect. It's check 1, check 2. Oh man, I love that track. I still play right now. The whole thing, the whole check 1, check 2. Loved it. Listening to Mucho talking this. When the girls came to re-record the vocals on both that and Human Nature remix. I know there's a big, Brian Alexander Morgan he doesn't think Teddy did much on it, and so there's still the dispute. But and he you know, for me, I got into SWV because of that track, yeah, that's yeah. So what about yourself, Stevie? You're number 2.
A late change. It dropped from number 1 to number 2 because Sheldon made me. When Sheldon mentioned it a few weeks ago, I realized it was my favorite record of 1992, not my all-time favorite New Jack record. But Bubba, I like your style. Either the album mix or the extended mix. It's just, I just think Teddy by that time had kind of mastered his New Jack sound, and it was a very quintessential sound that everything just was in place. It was almost futuristic sounding. He'd mastered that lately elastic bass sound, and I just thought it's an incredible record. It's so funky, funky.
But the bass line that he uses is sampled from a record, one of the earliest rap records that he did. If you go back and listen to it was on Jive Records. It's called Rap's New Generation. Look that up, and you'll hear that bass line. It's a synth bass line, and he recycles that bass line in a lot of his productions. And when you hear it, you'll know what it is. But that is from he samples rap. The name of the song is called Rap's New Generation.
Yeah.
And you'll hear the bass line. That's where it comes from. And of course, those synths, when Bub is singing, if loving you is, you know, and then the synths underneath it, very warm. Yes.
And we get introduced to Tammy singing the coast sing alongside. That was my number 2, but I had to take it out for SWVs. But I mean, so it was literally my number 2, and I was like, oh no, I need to. As much as I love it, but I think I love I'm So Into You.
The biggest crime about that record, we never got a video to it, did we?
No, that was almost like, if you look at it, that was almost like, not in a negative way, it was like filler, because it wasn't really like a lead single. I forgot what the lead single off was on it, but it came out as a 12-inch. But and that's strange because at
it was
that
on the
time,
House Party soundtrack.
There was a lot of Teddy Riley records. There was one he did called Ready or Not with Rex and Effect. Was singing. So
there was a House Party. Yeah.
I like this style. Today was still signed to Motown.
But I wonder, because he did on both House Party. So I think Radio Note was on. I don't know which was on 2 and which was on House Party, but he did both tracks for both different albums for the different House Party tracks. Yeah. Okay, and so
I'm enjoying your top 10 so far, Sheldon. You know, you come up with some interesting selections there. I just want to.
Yeah, man. And based on Namdi's, I'm gonna have my number 1. My number 1 has changed thanks to Namdi. We'll say that for next time, though.
Yeah, I mean, as I said, you know, I mean, because we could try and be looking at. Yeah. Okay. So, because if we're coming out with our number 1s next episode, we still have to think about albums, though. I mean, and
then we'll have a top 10 new Jack ballads, because I'm sure Sheldon will have.
Stevie's like, nah, I'm with the up tempo.
No, there's so many ballads from that period that are just unbelievable. We need a top 10. Ballads as well, New Jack ballads.
Yeah, I mean, you know, that definitely there was. It hit differently. You know, it definitely did hit differently, and especially when you think about how, Teddy and Timmy's sort of the ballads they did in "Goodbye Love" and "Piece of My Love," and that's what Devante picked up on, and you know, even How Deep Is Your Love, that vibe, you know, Teddy left that vibe, which I didn't like. He did that, and other people picked it up, and that became, you know, think of R. Kelly, think of H-Town, that type of that vibe that he started off with. Everyone else took it and he ran with it, and he just went in a different direction. But hey ho,
I want to say shout out to Torch 2049. He's got another post here. Very interesting choice. No hard choice feelings toward Capitol Records. It's just I personally know how hard Timmy Regisford and Freddie Sandin worked at MCA before starting Shelter Records. So he's giving us some interesting backstory in terms of cats behind the scene who really made those records pop. So shout out to Torch 2049.
Yeah, definitely. I mean,
I'm going to say heads up about in a few weeks we've got another guest coming on. She had 2 albums for Atlantic Records, 1989 and 91. You'll find this interesting, Sheldon, because her husband was part of the SOS band and something to do with the group Brick.
Oh, so, yeah. Go ahead. Okay.
So we've got Angie. We've got Angie hopefully coming on in a few weeks. She's confirmed she'd like to be a guest. So
that's dope. You know, but she can really give us a lot of insight on that whole Atlanta situation going on at that time, so the music scene and all that. So the transition with the new Jack and everything else. So that's really be dope. That's good.
Yeah. Wow. Anyway, guys, when's
the next date? When's episode 6 happening now? Is it somewhat time tuning it?
Episode 6 is on the 11th.
Yeah, that's
when Angie is booked and then after her we have to talk to we reach back out to Mike and Idris and see who's else. But I'm just really I'm glad that we're doing this, and I'm glad that we've got a community of friends who are supporting us along
good
the
momentum
way.
Built now. We're building some good momentum with it, you know.
Yes, no, definitely. And then we definitely will have at the drum rolls with our top single New Jack Swing singles as well. But guys, it's been great. We still want to thank Mike Cee for taking time just to support us this evening. Thanks to everyone that watches and comments and supports us. And we definitely want to continue to do this and celebrate the artists, the music, and everything around. Hopefully I can try and get Carl West and Tammy Lucas and Teddy Riley, yeah, right, to come and join us and stuff, just as Mike did tonight. And so it's it would be good.
I'm hoping that you someone from Universal Records might watch this and want to sponsor us so we can do it every week.
Yes, you know what? Yeah, sponsors would be great. So it will make a massive difference. Sheldon, your point, Raps New Generation. That's why. I mean, it's also so close to Gail. You've got Myers and you, and Carrie's Fishy show.
Torch. That's Carrie Lucas. Show me where you coming from. Me and Stevie were talking about that offline, in the chat. Girl, I got my eyes on you. Yeah, that's what Teddy used to do. Teddy used to interpolate a lot of sounds from a lot of different records and incorporate them in that. So yeah, that's Carrie Lucas. Show me where you coming from. Yes. That's one of my choices. Girl, I got my eye on you last week. Go ahead.
Yeah, yes, you did bring it up. Just quick, as before we wrap up, how significant is what's the name of this? The remix that Teddy did for what's the name? What's her name? I can't remember the girl, the rock song that
Jane Child.
Yeah, how significant of a track? Because I mean, is it because it's Teddy that was a good track, or was it actually a big? I mean, it was a massive track.
Well, I remember when it came out, and I remember it was all over MTV at the time, and it was totally night and day. I mean, if you hear the original, you would be like,
it was a night and day track. Completely.
It was 1989. It was like had keyboards, and it was more like a kind of a synthy rock record. But I guess something about it caught his ear, because then when he put the remix out, and I remember going to buy the remix, and it had like 6 or 7 different remixes, and I used to play that thing for hours. And that was a big club record.
Completely.
As a matter of fact, I bought it 3 times. I bought the album, and then I bought the CD single, and then the CD single got damaged, and then I bought the CD single again, man. Great remixes. And that's around that time. People that window when he left Gene, there's a lot of work that he was doing, man. That 90-ish, 91 period, right around the time The Future comes out, he's putting in a lot of work, man.
those 12-inch singles back then were just, you know, you get like 7 mixes, like you say, bonus beats, dubs. You know, like you say, he must have DAT tapes full of mixes. He must have been all night in the studio doing various mixes.
Man, he did a remix for Tony, Baby Doll. I mean, I had all those songs on the cassette, and I let somebody borrow it, and I never got it back, and it broke my heart, man.
You know, I did listen. I did have that from when Napster first came out, and you just I mean, as I said, I'm the biggest Teddy Riley fan. I just type in Teddy Riley, and all of those tracks would pop up, like Baby Doll and all those things and stuff. So yeah, and so that's all my sort of rest. I'm not like Stevie that he's like an art collector with music. So
Stevie's a Rain Man of New Jack. Yeah.
Probably went down to Japan to get the rare 12-inch.
Right.
Guys, I'd assume you're both married. I'm not married, so I've been able to do that. If I was married, not a chance. You know what I mean?
I'm married, but you're right. If I was married, I would have been about all the records and all the music and all the books and all of that. But we know you, Stevie. You jumped on the Concorde. You left Heathrow and you just went on to Japan 24 hours, 20 hours. Got your records and you came back. So yeah.
And
then you're buying these mint condition. They're not used. They're still in the plastic. You're paying 75 euros for one record. You know. Yeah,
I should open a New Jack Swing museum so everyone could pay to come and have a look around it. You know.
Yeah, I mean, as I said, I didn't realize there was a difference with the mixes, until I listened to, as I said, Let's Stay Together is one of my favorite tracks, but there's the remix version. I didn't know about the Dog Me Out remix, and so because when I was in Nigeria, we weren't getting the mix, we were just getting what was on the videos, which was mostly the album cuts. So when I started hearing remixes, I'm like, where did this come from? And I never understood why Japan got a lot of these mixes and singles. I mean, what was the deal? They got more of them than we did here in the UK, or maybe I'm wrong.
Well, see, also too, some of those companies, like Japan, had parent companies. Of course, those parent companies, Sony, MCA, they got them all over, Europe and all of that, and Japan. That might be what it was, man. Is that they basically had access to it because of the it was an international company. Because Guy did go to Japan. They went to Japan and performed. So
Japan love R&B. They love all that.
And yeah, Japan is big R&B, big jazz, anything pertaining to like black music or whatever. They're really, really big. And then sometimes those labels they would release some of those songs over into Japan because there was a market demand for them before they even came back to the States. But yeah, man. Yeah, that Dog Me Out video, that Dog Me Out remix wound up being the actual song in the video. And that's how I became aware of it. I was like, wow. But when they were doing it to give the songs life. Because remember, by the time the Dog Me Out video was out, the Future album had been out for probably about 6 months. Because it came in October like 90. So it had about 4 or 5 singles. Because by the time, go ahead.
Yeah, they had 6 singles. They had 6 singles off that album. They had
Want to Get With You,
Want to Get You to Do Me Right,
Dog Me Out, Let's Stay Together.
Teddy's Jam, Do Me Right,
Let's Chill.
Let's Chill.
Jam 2, I think.
Yeah, and they had Let's Stay Together. Yeah,
Let's
they had
Chill.
6.
Yeah, so and think about it is that they had already broken up almost by the time the Let's Stay Together single would come out, because that one came out like early, like 92-ish, if you look at the release date. So that album had, even though it only went platinum, it had a life size, it had a long shelf life in terms of the singles that they were releasing on that record, But that's the power of MCA, and I think it was, I don't know if it was the person we had before, TC Tompkins. He talked about Al Teller. Al Teller was the president of MCA, and he was the one who did the business with Teddy for Teddy to do the Future situation, and MCA was the one that financed the Future studio. So MCA, man, they were really, really big in the urban music back then, man, and they were throwing their money into it.
Yeah, well, anyway, I know.
Yes.
we could go on and on and on, guys. We want to thank you guys for tuning in, and yeah, please continue to support us. On the 11th, starting at 4 Eastern, we will have our special guest, Angie. And okay, guys, so we'll catch you next time.
Stevie, I need some frequent flyer miles, man.